these Psalms is it begins not necessarily with a problem or an issue, but a thing that's going to be done, and then it ascends. It goes up. It moves forward. And I think for a lot of us that can be encouraging because we begin with a problem, an issue, a challenge, maybe a feeling. And it's good for us as we pray, as we meditate, whatever it is, that we move ourselves up. We go toward God in whatever situation that we are in. And so we're going to look at Psalm 121. And if we get to it, we'll look at Psalm 122 and see how far we get. Okay, Psalm 121, a song of for pilgrims ascending to Jerusalem. I look up to the mountains. Does my help come from there? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let you stumble. The one who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel never slumbers or sleeps. The Lord himself watches over you. The Lord stands beside you as your protective shade. The sun will not harm you by day or the moon at night. The Lord keeps you from all harm and watches over your life. The Lord keeps watch over you as you come and go, both now and forever. And so one of the things I love about this psalm is, as opposed to Psalm 130 that we looked at before that begins with a problem, this begins with whatever circumstance I'm in, I look to the mountains. And it's my understanding that looking to the mountains is looking for help or aid. Mountains is the issue. It's a high place. And so it's the idea of heavens, of where God lives, of those kind of ideas. And so obviously they're not looking necessarily to a mountain, but to this imagery of I look for help. I look for assistance, those types of things. And so does my help come from there? My help comes from the Lord. My help comes from Yahweh, who made heaven and earth. So why do you think it's important, this I don't know if it's a parallel, but this idea of my help comes from the Lord and then the one who made heaven and earth? Why do you think that back and forth, that interesting kind of toggle that he does? Why would heaven and earth matter in terms of it being the Lord? I mean, who do you want helping you with your life situations? The guy that made heaven and earth, right? The one who can help you. The one who has this, not just this power, but has the conformity, has the order, has the harmony, all those kind of ideas. And so, as they're going to Jerusalem, as he's thinking about things, I look to the mountains for help. The one who helps me is the Lord. He made heaven and earth. The word here for help is the word either Ezer or Azer. And it's the word for helper, advocate, or a comforter, all of them. And our word, the word in Greek, I keep calling them sometimes a cousin word. Obviously, Greek and Hebrew are different languages. But the Greek equivalent is the word parakletos. And we get the same word, parakletos, in many places in the New Testament. But in John 14, whenever Jesus offers the Holy Spirit as your comforter or as your advocate, either one as your helper, it's the same word. And so my help, my comforter, my parakletos. Now, for those of you that are probably going to check, and none of you I think will, parakletos is Greek. It's not Hebrew, but again, it's the same idea. So my advocate, my comfort, comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. And some of the words that we get for this, Eleazar, who was the son of Aaron, the high priest, that word is my God has helped. And so El, being my God, has helped, is Azer, Eleazar. And then Ebenezer, in the song we sing, Here I Raise My Ebenezer, is a stone of help. So I assume Ebby in some way is stone, and then Azer is help. And also, whenever God makes Eve, the word there for helpmate or helper is an Azer. God makes an Azer or an Ezer for Adam. Same word. So the help, the comfort comes from the Lord. And I think it's very interesting, at least in our culture today, that, and this is a cliche, but oftentimes the help that we sometimes want, the comfort, whatever you want to call it, may come from, stuff, whether it's, food or buying something or watching something or whatever the case may be. And for the psalmist here, of course, they didn't have all the stuff that we have today. He is making the case that my advocacy, my comfort, comes from the Lord. And that's important because the Lord, Yahweh, made heaven and earth. So there's nothing that I need that can't come from Him. He's fully going to take care of all of it. Verse 3, He will not let you stumble. The one who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, He who watches over Israel never slumbers or sleeps. And so the one He's calling to for this comfort or this help or this advocacy, He's kind of like, if you're pleading your case in court and you've got your lawyer, and the lawyer wants to win, the lawyer wants to come out ahead. I don't know how many of you guys like to watch, shows that do lawyer stuff where they're in the courtroom a lot. And as the lawyer is listening to the arguments of either the prosecution or the defense, and they'll say something and they'll say, I objection, or, this or that, because they're listening, they're tuned in to what is being said because they want to win. They want to take care of their client. And so the Lord, in listening to this song, He will not let you stumble. He will not slumber. He's not going to fall asleep on the job. Indeed, He who watches over Israel never slumbers or sleeps. And I don't know if you've ever thought about that whenever, you're in the moment of meditation or prayer, that, we never consider the fact that, we look at our clock and we're like, it's 3:30 in the morning, so God's probably asleep, do I need to wake Him up? Of course not. He doesn't slumber. He doesn't sleep. He is always watching over Israel. So what do you think about the line here? And I didn't look up this word, so I'm not exactly sure what it specifically means. And I didn't look at other translations. Let's see. Verse 3, the NIV says He will not let you stumble. The ESV says He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. The NIV says He will not let your foot slip. What do y'all think about that? He will not let your foot slip, or He will not allow you to stumble. Because this is kind of juxtaposed to He will not let you slumber or stumble. The one who watches over you will not slumber. He who watches over Israel, he does not slumber or sleep. And so the Lord here is always like on top of things. He's always watching. He's always caring. He's always advocating for these pilgrims, for the Jews, for God's people. He's always mindful of what's happening. I guess the curiosity for me is, they're going to stumble. That's the whole reason for the sacrifices. It's the whole reason for a lot of stuff that was set up. We're going to stumble today. So it's obviously not saying that God is going to provide a situation where he makes it where we don't stumble, because that's just not the case. But if we fully give ourselves to him, Matthew chapter 7 talks about if we follow God's teachings, then we will be functional. We will be whole in terms of what God calls us to be. So the stumbling may not necessarily be in terms of sin, but it may be in terms of keeping our eyes on what God is calling us to do, staying, in line, staying on schedule, whatever the case may be. And at least for me, that's encouraging, because a lot of the places where it talks about, necessarily not sinning, that's not going to happen, I don't think. Because the whole purpose for the cross is because I don't know if it's not capable, all sin and fall short of the glory of God, Romans 3 says. But if the stumbling is, we will stay on point, we will stay on schedule, we will remain firm in trusting that my aid, my advocacy comes from the Lord, and my trust will stay true to what he says he will do. Because he always watches over. The one who watches does not slumber. He who watches over Israel does not slumber or sleep. He is engaged as our advocate. That's really cool. I really like that. So verse 5, and I found this interesting simply because, we find a lot, and we did this study, 6 months ago maybe, when we went through and looked at the study of angels/messengers. Really irks me that, it still irks me that they changed the word and they just transliterated it, because before the word angel was a transliteration, it wasn't a word. It just aggravates me. But, that's just me. So we studied and we went through the angels. And oftentimes, God would use, angels as his messengers for a message, for action, for whatever it may be. When we look through Genesis 18 and 19 with Sodom, where, now, understanding there's a lot of personification here in terms of what we're told happened so that we could kind of put it on hooks in our brain. But as Yahweh and his messengers are there, and the messengers go down to Sodom to check it out, while Yahweh stays with Abram, and they have that whole conversation. And so the messengers went down while Yahweh stayed there. And you have many other examples throughout the Old Testament of what angels do and the role that they have within carrying a message for Yahweh. But here in verse 5, Yahweh himself watches over you. It's not an angel. It's not a cherub. It's not any other entity. It's Yahweh himself watches over you. Yahweh stands beside you as your protective shade. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon at night. And so I guess I would find that very encouraging, that there's not an angel sent. There's not another presence with authority coming. Yahweh himself is going to watch over you and going to take care of you. And he stands beside you as a protective shade. Growing up in the South, that means a lot to me because there was times when you're outside, and it really doesn't matter what time of year it is, but specifically like May to September, it's really, really hot. And if if you're driving around in a car and you're going to like a store, you'd be willing to walk extra to find shade. If there's like a tree and it's got the smallest amount of shade, you're going to park there and walk further so that when you get back, your car isn't this furnace that you have to get into. There was a video a while back, and I haven't been able to find it. Maybe I'll ask a millennial, and they'll help me find it because they're better at that kind of thing than I am. But there were these guys who were wanting to steal this car, and you could tell that it was somewhere in the South, and it was probably in deep summer. And so when they went to open up the door, it like sizzled. So they opened up the doors, So they got the door open, and they got in there, and it was so burning hot. They went to put on the seatbelt, and it was burning hot. And they went to put their hands on the steering wheel. They went through this whole funny thing. And the cops got called, and they pulled up. And so they grabbed the guys. And I'm sorry, it's funny to me because I've done it so many times. They take the guys over to the cop car, and they open up the doors, and everybody stands back because the doors, you got all the heat coming out of the cop car. And then they put the guys in, and they're trying to put them in and get everything set. It's hilarious if you've, actually done that before. And I'm just telling you, now that I've lived here for, almost 8 years, it gets hot in the summer. It does. But plant a car anywhere in the South in July, like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and let it just sit there for like 2 hours. Windows up. Can't have the windows up. And then you open that sucker and try and get in and put your seatbelt on. It's everything is hot. So Yahweh stands beside you as a protective shade. He shades you. He's protective. The sun will not harm you by day, the moon by night. And I think there's a lot of imagery and symbolism that I'm missing here. But the idea that Yahweh does it himself. He watches over you. And it's interesting how you have this symbolism, I guess, that it continues to repeat itself. I look to the heavens. That's where my azer comes from. My help, my advocacy comes from. My help comes from Yahweh. And he's not just any God. He made the heavens and the earth, so he can take care of me. He will not let me get off course. The one who watches, he doesn't slumber. He doesn't sleep. He's on it. He's taking care of me. And then after he gives these ideas, verse 5, he himself does it. He doesn't send, again, a messenger. He himself watches over you, takes care of you. And as I think about our daughter-in-law, Kinley, is about to have Amari, a little girl. And it's almost as if the first, I don't know, it's been so long since I had a baby. Well, I didn't have a baby, but, since I had a baby. That, the first, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months, however long it is, you're protective and you're watching and you're there and you're in the crib and, wherever they are, you're very, very protective. You're watching over them in a very, very special way. The Lord himself, Yahweh himself, watches over you, gives you protective shade, watching you constantly. He does not slumber, verse 3 and 4. He does not sleep. He is always there. Now remember, as you notice, they're ascending to Jerusalem. They're going on their way toward the sacrifices and all of the stuff that they do. And so they are kind of not even reminding themselves, but being aware of where they're going and what they're doing and what Yahweh does and how Yahweh is protective and takes care of them. Verse 7, the Lord keeps you from all harm and watches over your life. The Lord keeps watch over you as you come and go, both now and forever. Do you think verse 3 and 7 are a bit of hyperbole? Yeah.
I was just thinking that it's also an affirmation of praise to God, that you recognize that He is all powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, with that comment, there are times that it kind of makes me curious that, God knows who He is, but sometimes the affirming is to ourselves, reminding myself that God is that, as opposed to affirming to God something that He, that He knows about Himself. But the reminder is good. The reminder is needed of who He is and what He does for me. Absolutely. And the reason I ask if that's kind of hyperbole is the fact that is harm going to come to us within our lives? It will, because of the nature of the world that we live in. And yet some of this, it's almost like, which this may be a terrible example, but you hear sometimes when you listen to and again, I'm a big college football fan, and you'll hear a coach or a team captain talking about their team, and they're like, man, if we play our game and we do everything we're supposed to do, we will never lose. And then they go out and feel like they played a great game and they lose by 2 touchdowns. So, there's hyperbole, there's this idea of what could happen versus reality. And, I guess it is possible that if we remain true to God's principles all the time, we're not going to sin. We're not going to fall. We're not going to have those things happen. But here in this context, it seems like the idea is more of God is watching. God is going to keep me on schedule. He's going to keep me protected. He watches over me. Verse 8, Yahweh keeps watch over you as you come and go, both now and forever. So any more thoughts about Psalm 121? All right, let's flip over to Psalm 122. Oh, I didn't realize I did that. I was like, what is that? That doesn't have anything to do with... I don't know how many of you guys, whenever you use Word or any Office application, I just save as. I don't mess with creating a whole new presentation. And sometimes when I save as, I forget to take away frames from other stuff. Okay, Psalm 122. So I have a strange question, and there's 3 options. So I guess I enjoy interaction and stuff a little bit more than I think. Either you guys are really tired, or this is just a self-evident psalm, or it's really warm in here. Or I'm just assuming all 3, and you're like, Andy, everything's fine. We're just kind of chilling and sitting here. So which is it? Okay, all right. All right. What's that? All of the above. Okay. Was one of those your board? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, Psalm 122. Again, a song for pilgrims ascending to Jerusalem, a psalm of David. I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Now here we are, standing inside your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a well-built city. Its seamless walls cannot be breached. All the tribes of Israel, the Lord's people, make their pilgrimage here. Now notice Psalm 121, what were they doing? Going to Jerusalem. Now they're there. They come to give thanks to the name of Yahweh, as the law requires of Israel. Here stands the thrones where judgment is given, the thrones of the dynasty of David. Pray for peace in Jerusalem. May all who love this city prosper. O Jerusalem, may there be peace within your walls and prosperity in your palaces. For the sake of my family and friends, I will say, may you have peace. For the sake of the house of the Lord, our God, I will seek what is best for you, O Jerusalem. So I guess what I enjoy about this one, because the rest of it is kind of contextual in the sense of where they are and how they feel about Jerusalem, and etc. And by the way, the word Jerusalem, the word itself means foundation of peace, which is kind of interesting. And I was listening to a podcast not too long ago, and I guess I realized I had a real presumption I didn't realize I had, that Jerusalem was always, Jerusalem. It was always Israel. It was always David. It was always all those kind of things. But that's not true. It was once not an Israelite city. David had to take it over, and et cetera, et cetera. I see Jerusalem and I think of David and Israel, but it wasn't always that way. So, verse 1, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house or the temple of Yahweh. And now here we are, standing inside your gates, O Jerusalem. So one of the things I enjoy about that is just the idea that I was glad when we got to the house of Yahweh, when we got to the house of the Lord. What a great moment, what a great feeling. And then as they describe, this psalmist describes Jerusalem. And again, a lot of these things are whatever you call hyperbole, or they're symbolic, they're imagery, because Jerusalem could be breached. Things could happen to it, but it's more of the feeling about the place, about Jerusalem and what it meant to Israel. We may end a little early today. I was wanting to go through Psalm 121 and 122. And any thoughts about either one of those? Yeah.
I guess I'm not really sure what I think about 121 in terms of our protection for us today. Back then, they relied on physical protection from God.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And I know we stumble.
Yeah.
And well, you can say, well, they're talking spiritually, but we stumble spiritually
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But what I like in one of the songs is that lots of times they'll say, woe is me, the sky is falling. And through talking to themselves, or like we do, we realize God blesses us with, if we think we have all these problems, and then we come to the determination, wow, I've got a roof over my head.
Right.
I've got food to eat. I have water to drink.
Right.
You know, and God provides for me.
Yeah.
But what does that mean to the Christian who may be starving somewhere or persecuted?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah. Well, but I think you make a great point that at this time, if Israel is, the broad term faithful to God, nobody could breach them. Nobody could mess with them. And you see that throughout the Old Testament. But as we bring it forward, we're going to have stuff that happens to us. If we are, again, the broad term faithful, are people going to get sick? Yeah. And challenges are going to happen and stuff's going to go on. But God's presence will always be with us. And when we concentrate on that and, meditate on that, then we have that calmness of the spirit. We have that, that stillness that is there. Kind of like, when the Egyptian army is coming after Israel, and Moses tells them to be still and watch what God is doing. So a lot of that is perspective in the sense of these things are still going to happen, but doesn't mean God is not with us, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if I answered your question there or not, or, because I think if we try and take Psalm and bring it here in the same context, then we're going to kind of miss the point. And yeah, because we are going to. No. Yeah, very different setting, very different people, all those kind of things. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, but in Psalm 121, the same thing exists. It is Yahweh watching over us. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't slumber. He is our advocate. All those kind of things. And all those things are still very, very real. But yeah, we live in a very different context, a very different setting than they did. Very, very different setting. But those ideas still exist. And you may even be able to stretch Psalm 122, Jerusalem being the church. It is well built. It is beautiful. Giving thanks to the name of the Lord because of the church. Pray for peace for the church. Pray for prosperity. All those kind of things, if we take it into that kind of context. All righty, well, next week we'll hit another psalm, and I'm thinking about looking into another topic, but I got to get it all pieced together in my head, and it may be something that you guys enjoy. It's something I've been looking at for a number of months and want to share it with you. So, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Yeah. All righty. Well, thanks for your comments.